Elon Musk is shooting for the moon. The man who recently became the world's first trillionaire, for a short time at least, revealing plans for SpaceX to send thousands of people to the moon and Mars, and it could happen within a decade. SpaceX now aiming to blast off rockets before the end of 2026 that would send the first materials to the moon and Mars that are needed to begin building space colonies. It's happening. According to Musk's plans, robots will be the first ones to touch down on the surfaces in order to prepare the infrastructure needed for humans to survive. Astronauts are expected to follow shortly thereafter, with Musk saying he hopes to land an astronaut on the moon in the next 2 to 3 years before rapidly expanding from there. The eventual goal? Well, for SpaceX, self-containing colonies in space. They start small but grow to have tens of thousands of people living there. Now, Musk's plan came to fruition, or at least closer to fruition, on Thursday when SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket launched 29 Starlink satellites into orbit, which are critical for improving communication between Earth and space. And we'll likely see more of those launches soon, as SpaceX filed an application with the FCC this week to get approval to send 100,000 satellites into space to make what the company calls a constellation of satellites. Bob, it's happening.
So very cool stuff. Joining us now to talk about it, former NASA astronauts, former commander of the International Space Station, and author of Dinner with an Astronaut, Dr. Leroy Chiao. Dr. Chiao, always a pleasure to have you on. So I guess we can get into all the logistics, but first, what I really want to ask you is, maybe why do we need colonies on the moon, and then eventually Mars, I guess, is the real goal here. Talk about the necessity of actually doing this. Why?
Elon Musk, in 2002, when he started SpaceX, he said he was doing it because he specifically wanted to create human colonies on Mars, and he himself wanted to live on Mars. And his idea is that, look, at some point the Earth could face a cataclysmic event, like a big impact that wiped out the dinosaurs some 30 million years ago. And so we have to be a multiplanetary species in order to survive. I'm not sure exactly why. I guess that's why he wants to go to Mars, but I'm glad he does, because it drives him to create all this technology that is just leaps and bounds ahead of where we would be without SpaceX and without him. Starship just finished its 12th flight test. 13th is coming up. It's going to be disruptive, fully reusable system, going to bring the cost dramatically down from even what it is today with SpaceX and its reusable Falcon 9 boosters to get things into space. So yeah, I think within 10 years, it's realistic to have bases on the moon, on Mars, colonies, maybe the beginnings of colonies, but at least visiting with humans and robotics. Of course, SpaceX making the Optimus robots, which they're planning to make in mass production. And so it makes sense that the robots would go first, but let's see how it goes.
Yeah, Leroy, I think what's interesting is I think of Elon Musk. Obviously, he is, it's a brilliant mind, a creative mind. He has really accomplished things that nobody thought possible. But I also always think of kind of him as potentially like a young kid, like a boyhood dream, like someday I'm going to go to Mars. I'm going to have a colony on Mars. And here he is doing it. So I always get a little excited, maybe on a different level, because I think of this little kid having these big dreams and actually getting there. Also, I think of you because, listen, I know you lived in space on the International Space Station. And so also probably a boyhood dream come true. Do you have any interest in going back, maybe being part of one of Elon Musk's initial colonies, or at least just to go back and say hi?
Well, I was 8 years old when we landed on the moon. That's what inspired me to dream about being an astronaut myself. I was fortunate enough to realize that dream and had a very rich flying career with NASA. If I had a chance to go to the moon or Mars, I would jump at it. I wouldn't necessarily want to live either place, though, for long term. I'd like to go visit, explore, but come back to Earth. Things are much better here. The thing I miss most about being off the planet for long periods of time was, besides friends and family, were just being in nature, grass, smell of grass, squirrels running around, birds flying around, chirping, things like that. We were meant to be here, but I'd love to go visit the moon and or Mars.
Yes, a visit. I'd love to go to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there.
Yeah, I feel like once you're there and you've seen it and spent a couple of days, you're probably like, I kind of miss Earth now.
Yeah. Gravity.
Something but rocks
like
here on the moon.
Right.
No, we appreciate it. Dr. Leroy Chiao, thank you so much for joining us. And I'd love to see you go back there for a visit, too.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Great to be with you.
Let's work on that.